Like and subscribe to Sinister Shadows Studio, The Last Symphony. The grandeur of the old opera house was breathtaking. Marble columns reached up to a vaulted ceiling, adorned with intricate frescoes, and crystal chandeliers cast a warm, golden glow over the assembled crowd. Tonight was the highly anticipated debut of The Last Symphony, a mysterious composition discovered in the depths of the opera house's archives. No one knew who had written it, but rumors of its haunting beauty had spread like wildfire. I had always been drawn to the unusual and the macabre, so when I secured a ticket, I felt both excited and apprehensive. There was something about the unknown composer and the sudden reappearance of the score that felt eerie. The velvet seat felt plush beneath me as I settled in, surrounded by the murmur of the expectant audience. The orchestra took their places, tuning their instruments as the house lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. The conductor, an enigmatic figure known only as Maestro, stepped onto the podium, his presence commanding silence. He raised his baton, and the first notes of the Last Symphony filled the air. The music was unlike anything I had ever heard. It was hauntingly beautiful, each note weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to reach into the depths of my soul. The melodies were dark and melancholic, yet there was an underlying current of something sinister. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the stage. As the symphony progressed, I noticed something strange. The frescoes on the ceiling seemed to come alive, the painted figures shifting and moving, as if they were dancing to the music. I blinked, convinced it was a trick of the light, but the movement continued. The figures twisted and writhed, their expressions morphing from serene to grotesque. I glanced around, but no one else seemed to notice. The audience was entranced, their eyes fixed on the stage. The music grew more intense, the notes becoming sharper, almost discordant. The chandeliers began to sway, the crystals clinking together in an eerie harmony. The maestro's movements became more frantic, his baton slicing through the air with increasing ferocity. The orchestra followed suit, their playing reaching a fevered pitch. The walls of the opera house seemed to close in, the air growing thick and suffocating. Suddenly the lights flickered. The music halted abruptly, and a collective gasp rose from the audience. The chandeliers stopped swaying, and an unnatural silence filled the room. The maestro stood frozen, his eyes wide with terror, his baton still raised. From the shadows at the edge of the stage, a figure emerged. It was tall and gaunt, shrouded in a dark, tattered cloak. The air grew colder as it approached, and a palpable sense of dread washed over me. The figure reached the center of the stage and extended a skeletal hand towards the maestro. The conductor dropped his baton, stumbling back. The figure moved closer, its presence exuding a malevolent force. I wanted to scream, to warn him, but my voice was caught in my throat. The figure touched the maestro, and he collapsed, lifeless. Panic erupted. People scrambled to their feet, desperate to escape, but the doors of the opera house remained firmly shut. The figure turned its attention to the audience, and I felt a wave of fear so intense it was paralyzing. It raised both hands, and the chandeliers shattered, raining glass down upon us. The frescoes on the ceiling contorted into nightmarish scenes, and the walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The figure's voice echoed through the hall, a guttural whisper that chilled me to the bone. "You have awakened me," it intoned. "The symphony was a seal, and now it is broken. Your world will know despair." A piercing scream cut through the air as the figure vanished, leaving chaos in its wake. The doors finally burst open, and the audience surged towards the exit, trampling over one another in their desperation to escape. I stumbled out into the night, gasping for breath. The opera house loomed behind me, its once grand facade now twisted and foreboding. I could still hear the echoes of the symphony, each note a reminder of the horror we had unleashed. In the days that followed, strange occurrences plagued the city. People reported seeing shadowy figures in their homes, hearing disembodied whispers, and feeling an overwhelming sense of dread. The opera house was cordoned off, deemed too dangerous to enter. Despite my fear, I felt a compulsion to return. I needed to understand what had happened, to find some way to stop it. I gathered what little courage I had and made my way back to the opera house, slipping past the barriers in the dead of night. The interior was eerily silent, the air thick with an oppressive darkness. I made my way to the stage where the maestro had fallen. There, in the center, lay the score of the Last Symphony, its pages fluttering as if caught in an unseen breeze. As I approached, the music began to play again, this time softer, almost inviting. I reached out to touch the score, and the figure materialized once more, its eyes glowing with a cold, malevolent light. "You cannot stop what has been set in motion," it whispered. "The symphony will play, and the world will fall." I felt a surge of anger and defiance. "I won't let you," I said, my voice trembling but determined. I grabbed the score and tore it in half. A deafening roar filled the opera house, and the figure screamed in rage. The walls shook, and the ground beneath me cracked open, but I held my ground. The figure lunged at me, but as it reached me it began to dissolve, its form disintegrating into shadows. The opera house fell silent once more, and I collapsed to my knees, clutching the torn pages. The weight of what I had done settled over me, but so did a sense of relief. The symphony was destroyed, and the nightmare was over. Or so I hoped. As I left the opera house, the echoes of the final notes lingered in my mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness that had been unleashed. And I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the shadows, the maestro's Last Symphony was still playing. The final note. The anticipation in the air was palpable as I walked into the concert hall. My heart pounded with excitement. It wasn't every day you got to see your favorite band live. This was going to be an unforgettable night. The venue was packed, rows upon rows of seats filled with eager fans, all buzzing with the same electrifying energy. The stage was set, instruments gleaming under the dim lights, and the massive speakers promised an auditory experience like no other. I found my seat, nestled comfortably among the throng of other enthusiasts, and settled in, my eyes glued to the stage. As the lights dimmed, a hush fell over the crowd. The anticipation reached its peak. Suddenly, a single spotlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the lead singer. The roar of the audience was deafening. The band launched into their first song, and the hall vibrated with sound. It was everything I'd hoped for. The first few songs were a blur of light and sound, each note sending shivers down my spine. The music was hypnotic, the band's performance flawless. But as they transitioned into their fourth song, something changed. The temperature seemed to drop, and the air felt heavy. I brushed it off as my imagination. I was too caught up in the experience to care. Halfway through the song, the lead singer's voice wavered, then faltered completely. The band stopped playing, confusion etched on their faces. A murmur rippled through the audience. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The singer clutched his throat, his face contorted in pain. And then, the scream. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard, raw, primal, filled with unimaginable terror. The crowd fell silent, a collective breath held in shock. The singer collapsed to his knees, still clutching his throat, eyes wide with fear. Chaos erupted. People screamed, surged towards the exits. But the doors wouldn't budge. Panic set in as the reality of our situation hit us. We were trapped. The band members tried to help their fallen comrade, but it was no use. His body convulsed, then lay still. The room grew colder, and the lights flickered more violently. I felt a chill run down my spine as I watched the scene unfold. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. It was a strange, otherworldly sound that seemed to vibrate through my bones. The remaining band members looked around frantically, trying to locate the source. The hum grew louder, more insistent, until it was almost deafening. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. A shadow, darker than the surrounding darkness, slithered across the stage. My breath caught in my throat as the shadow coalesced into a form, tall, gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the very soul. The figure moved towards the band, its presence exuding a palpable sense of dread. One by one, the band members fell silent, their eyes glazed over with a vacant, lifeless stare. The figure turned its attention to the audience, and the hum intensified. People around me clutched their heads, crying out in pain. I wanted to run, to escape this nightmare, but my body wouldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear. The figure's hollow eyes met mine, and I felt a cold hand grip my heart. It was as if all the warmth, all the life was being drained from me. The hum reached a crescendo, and then silence. The figure vanished, leaving behind an oppressive stillness. The lights flickered one last time before plunging us into complete darkness. The only sounds were the muffled sobs and panicked breaths of the trapped audience. Minutes felt like hours as we waited in the dark, hoping for some sign of rescue. When the lights finally flickered back on, the stage was empty. The band was gone, their instruments abandoned. The doors creaked open, and we stumbled out into the cold night, dazed and terrified. In the following days, the news was filled with reports of the incident. The official statement was vague, some sort of technical malfunction, they said. But those of us who were there knew the truth. Something sinister had happened that night, something beyond explanation. I couldn't shake the memory of those hollow eyes, the chilling hum, and the feeling of my life being drained away. Nightmares plagued my sleep, and I became a shell of my former self. The concert that was supposed to be an unforgettable experience had indeed left an indelible mark, a scar on my mind and soul. Months passed, and the nightmares slowly faded, but the fear never truly left me. I avoided concerts, live performances, anything that reminded me of that night. I couldn't bear the thought of experiencing that terror again. It was on a quiet evening, almost a year later, that I received a letter. No return address, just my name scrawled in an elegant, almost otherworldly script. With trembling hands, I opened it. The message was simple, chilling in its brevity. They will return. My heart pounded as the fear from that night came rushing back. I knew deep down that the figure I saw wasn't done. The concert was just the beginning, a prelude to something far more terrifying. And as I sit here, the letter still clutched in my hand, I can't help but wonder, when will the final note be played? The Encore of Shadows. The neon lights of the concert hall shimmered in the summer dusk, promising a night of unforgettable music. I could barely contain my excitement as I joined the throngs of fans, all eager to see Reverie, the band that had taken the world by storm. This was their grand return after a mysterious year-long hiatus, and I had managed to snag a ticket. Little did I know, this night would be unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. As I took my seat, the hall buzzed with anticipation. The stage was bathed in a dim, almost ethereal blue light, the band's instruments waiting like silent sentinels. I glanced at the people around me, all equally excited, their faces glowing with expectation. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and perfume, mingling in a heady mix. The lights dimmed further, and the crowd erupted into cheers. A spotlight illuminated the stage, revealing the band members one by one. The lead singer, Jack, stepped forward, his charismatic smile capturing the audience. The first notes of their opening song sent a thrill through me. Reverie was back, and they were better than ever. The music was intoxicating, each song blending seamlessly into the next. It was as if the band had been reborn, their energy palpable, their performance flawless. Halfway through the set, Jax paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "This next one," he said, his voice echoing through the hall, "is a new song. We wrote it during our break. It's called Shadow's Lament." A hush fell over the crowd. The first haunting chords filled the air, sending a shiver down my spine. There was something unsettling about the melody, a dissonance that tugged at the edges of my mind. The lights dimmed further, casting long, eerie shadows across the stage. As the song progressed, the atmosphere grew heavy, oppressive. I glanced around, noticing others shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Jax's voice seemed to take on an otherworldly quality, resonating with an unnatural depth. The shadows on the stage began to move, twisting and writhing in time with the music. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The band continued to play, oblivious to the growing unease of the audience. A dark shape emerged from the shadows behind Jax, almost imperceptible at first. It grew more defined, a figure draped in darkness, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as the figure reached out towards Jax. He faltered, his voice cracking, then stopped altogether. The music continued, the other band members seemingly unaware of the spectral presence. The figure's hand touched Jax and he convulsed, a silent scream etched on his face. Chaos erupted. People screamed, bolting for the exits, but the doors wouldn't open. Panic set in, a wave of terror crashing over the audience. I felt a cold sweat break out on my skin as I watched in horror. The figure loomed over Jax, its eyes boring into his, and then it vanished, leaving him collapsed on the stage. The lights flickered back to life, and the music ceased abruptly. Jax lay motionless, the other band members frozen in shock. Emergency lights cast a harsh glow over the scene as security rushed in. But it was too late. Jax was gone, his body lifeless. The crowd surged again, desperate to escape. I pushed my way through, heart pounding, mind reeling from what I had just witnessed. The concert hall, once a place of joy and excitement, had become a nightmarish prison. Days later, the news was abuzz with theories and speculation. The official cause of Jax's death was cardiac arrest, but those of us who were there knew the truth. The shadowy figure, the malevolent presence, had taken him. Reverie's return was overshadowed by a darkness none of us could explain. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over me. Night after night, I relived the concert in my dreams, the haunting melody of Shadow's lament echoing in my mind. I saw the figure's glowing eyes, felt its cold presence. My waking hours were consumed by fear, every shadow a potential harbinger of doom. One night as I sat in my apartment, the dim light of my lamp casting flickering shadows on the walls, I received a package. There was no return address, just my name scrawled in an elegant, almost archaic script. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside was a vinyl record, the cover adorned with a single dark figure. Shadow's Lament was etched in silver letters. My heart raced as I placed the record on my turntable. The first notes filled the room, the same haunting melody that had begun the nightmare. As the music played, the shadows in my apartment seemed to deepen, moving with a life of their own. I felt a cold presence behind me and turned slowly, fear gripping my heart. The figure stood there, eyes glowing with the same malevolent light I had seen at the concert. It reached out, its hand inches from my face. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by terror. The music reached a crescendo, and the figure's touch sent a jolt of icy pain through me. Darkness consumed my vision, and I felt my life slipping away. When I awoke, the record had stopped. The figure was gone, but the fear remained, a constant companion. The concert had been just the beginning. Shadow's Lament was more than a song. It was a curse, a doorway to something dark and sinister. And as I sit here, the haunting melody still echoing in my mind, I know the shadows will return. The Encore of Shadows has only just begun.
Like if you enjoyed listening, let us know in the comments what spooked you, and give our video a share. Thank you, and subscribe to Sinister Shadow Studio for more horror stories.